What's up everyone, it's Endymion. In this video, I want to talk about the state of the modern gaming industry and how the modern audience curse is creeping its way into the halls of gaming websites. This video will be full of harsh criticism, hot takes, and brutal honesty. Before we dive in, let's hear from the sponsor of this video, HelloFresh. If there's one thing that annoys me, it's large groups of people and supermarkets, and that I'm lazy when it comes to cooking. HelloFresh, however, feels like the cheat code I've been missing in my life for so long. Their food comes in sealed, always fresh packaging, along with easy step-by-step instructions that are so simple to use, even a dummy like me can do it. You can also choose from recipe categories like quick meals for those of you always on the go. There's also family-friendly options and calorie-smart diets too, which are perfect for me since physical fitness is so important to my daily life. One of my personal favorites is the Italian-inspired beef burgers, which is a no-brainer for me because I'm always looking to bulk up, plus hamburgers are tasty too. With a flexible meal plan and dozens of choices available, HelloFresh really is the industry leader in making sure your diet stays healthy and affordable. And there's no stress either since you can alter or cancel your plan at any time with no strings attached. Use my code HelloEndymion for up to 20 free meals. You get a bunch of tasty food and you'll help support the channel as well. I mean, what's not to love? So head on over to HelloFresh and get your diet in order. Remember to use my code HelloEndymion and enjoy. Your tummy will be happy that you did. Thanks again to HelloFresh for sponsoring this video, and now let's begin. When I was a fresh-faced high school graduate, one of my dreams was to work at IGN and cover video games. I wanted to talk to developers and learn how my favorite entertainment medium was created. I mostly just wanted to be one of those game journalists that had the opportunity to share their opinions about things they loved so much and make a living off of it. But as time has gone on and the industry has changed, I look back at that innocent dream and I cringe so hard I sometimes want to slap myself for ever thinking that way. The IGN I used to love has become a shadow of its former self, as have many other gaming websites. I remember religiously scrolling through places like Kotaku or GameSpot for news about every new game, and these days, if I'm being honest, most video gaming websites are dead to me. And I don't seem to be the only one, since this year especially the tech industry has seen record levels of layoffs across the board. Sites like CNN, Vice, BuzzFeed, and more are all having layoffs in staggering numbers. And as you know, the Game Awards just happened, which is the night the industry comes together to celebrate the best of video games in one mega event. But as the glitz and glamour of the Game Awards happened and world premieres were being shown and champagne was flowing into the glasses of the industry's finest, another news story broke the same day when everyone was supposed to be in celebration. And that story is that there were actually layoffs at IGN, the biggest video gaming website on the planet. In the worst timing imaginable, IGN's parent company Ziff Davis decided to lay off their own employees the same day as gaming's biggest celebration was kicking off. The layoffs are apparently due to company restructuring and ad revenue being down across the board for not only IGN but many of these major websites that cover video games, movies, and more. But as awful as layoffs are, especially right before Christmas no less, I have to wonder if this massive restructuring of media is indicative of what's to come in the future. I mean, who's at fault, and most importantly, what caused all of this to happen? If you haven't noticed, my content has changed from covering just Souls-likes to the entire industry. This has happened not because I've fallen out of love for games like Elden Ring, but because I think it's my duty to discuss and point out the fallacies of this industry that I love so much. So I'm about to say some really scathing stuff here, but I think it needs to be said. You see, the reason why so many of these companies are falling apart, losing revenue and entire workforces is because they did it to themselves. Let me explain. Back in the early 2010s, the gaming industry as a whole was very situated around talking about video games and having fun with discussion. The days of shows like Podcast Beyond with Greg Miller and Colin Moriarty, for example, are what I consider to be the golden years of sites like IGN, where people of differing political stances, walks of life, and so on could come together and talk like real human beings. But as time went on, and especially around 2016 when a certain president was elected into office, it seems like the world had just lost its mind. And places like video game websites suddenly went from being fun and full of life to becoming gated off communities full of vitriol, tribalism, and political correctness. Gaming sites started publishing articles attacking their consumers, as well as bringing race into the discussion when it wasn't even warranted. One such example was when Days Gone was being previewed back in 2019, and both IGN and Kotaku in their previews decided it was important to point out that the main character, Deacon St. John, who's played by Sam Witwer, is boring because he's a white biker guy. IGN's John Ryan even said, and I quote, "While I'll admit that I initially rolled my eyes at yet another gruff white male protagonist in a grim world, especially one with such a gruff white male protagonisty name as Deacon St. John, I ended up getting far more invested than I'd initially expected." End quote. This sort of reader attacks would become far more prevalent and ridiculous, with even Kotaku at one point talking about the state of the world in politics during their review for the PS5. I wish I was kidding. Kotaku writer Ian Walker at one point while reviewing the PS5 just decides to turn a 180, and I quote, "But I'd be remiss to ignore all the reasons not to be excited for the PlayStation 5. The world is still reeling under the weight of the pandemic. There are more Americans out of work right now than at any point in the country's history, with no relief in sight. Our healthcare system is an inherently evil institution that forces people to ration life-saving medications like insulin and choose ending yourself over suffering with untreated mental illness. As I'm writing this, it looks very likely that Joe Biden will be our next president. But it's clear that the worst people aren't going away just because a new old white man is sitting behind the Resolute desk. Well, at least not this old white man. Our government is fundamentally broken in a way that necessitates radical change rather than incremental electoralism. The harsh truth is that, for the reasons listed above and more, a lot of people simply won't be able to buy a PlayStation 5 regardless of supply. Or if they can, concerns over increasing austerity in the United States and the growing threat of widespread political violence supersede any euphemism about the console's SSD, or how ray tracing makes reflections more realistic. That's not to say you can't be excited for those things, I certainly am on some level, but there's an irrefutable level of privilege attached to the ability to simply tune out the world as it burns around you." End quote. Oh my god, if this example from Kotaku doesn't spell it out for you, it's that the gaming industry as a whole has definitely become far more politicized. And not only that, but these journalists, and I use that term loosely, all seem to be cut from the same cloth with the same ideologies as well. Besides IGN and Kotaku, we also have GameSpot, who at one point released a preview video about Far Cry 5, where the staff stood around in a circle as they talked about how traumatic it was to have a conservative quest giver. I'll just let the video speak for itself. Here, listen.
Watching some footage with you guys with the guy running for Senate who's a quest giver.
Who's also Herc's dad.
Herc's dad.
The dude that said Obama-loving libtards.
If them Obama-loving libtards find out I can't look after my own property, I can kiss this Senate run goodbye.
Just watching that guy, I don't understand what tone they're going for with him, because I'm like, okay, he's not a villain, he's not like, but he's a quest giver, so is he just kind of meant to be an asshole? Am I supposed to like him? What are they trying to say with the characters in this game? I don't really know.
It seems like they are trying to sort of have it both ways, because even though the game is set in America and it's going to be viewed through that lens of the current political climate as we're in right now, they're also trying to say that it's its own standalone thing. It's not related to current politics, which again is weird because you have scenes like scenes with Herc's dad, who's talking about Obama-loving libtard. The game also has a character creator, and I decided to make my character black. So going onto his property and actually hearing him talk about like this sort of deeply conservative and like sort of gun-toting attitudes, that made me really uncomfortable. So.
As you can see, there seems to be a pattern here amongst many of these gaming journalists. They all seem to be of one political leaning and have an almost hive mind-like mentality when it comes to how they perceive things. The one GameSpot employee here, you can even see the way he looks at his colleagues like he's trying to find the right words to say so he doesn't get rejected from the group. Because anything that goes against what they've been programmed to believe causes their brains to malfunction. And it's extra hilarious when the one GameSpot writer says he was extremely uncomfortable being a black character talking to Herc's dad who's wielding a gun. But also doesn't seem to realize that his character in Far Cry 5 has a gun on them too and is responsible for like 99% of the deaths in that game by their own hand. It's like these gaming journos go out of their way to be offended when there's nothing to be offended by. Like their brains can't process someone of a different political leaning being viewed in a non-hostile manner. This deep-rooted tribalism mentality is what is killing the industry for me and many others. These gaming journalists and the websites that employ them all seem to believe they know better than everyone else. And if you have any opinions that are different from their own, you are considered subhuman and the enemy. And these are the same publications that end up getting mad when their viewers decide to fight back, like, what did you expect? You should never attack your audience. A big reason for why I've largely abandoned so many of these publications is because there's just no unique voices within them. Have you noticed how every one of these sites all have the same opinions about literally everything? Like, where is the interesting and nuanced discussions? Why would I want to listen to 5 yuppie journalists in a room smelling their own farts who all have the same opinion? It's not interesting because there's nothing to be challenged or debated. This is largely why so many viewers and consumers have moved to independent media, like for example, you right now are watching me, I'm that independent media. I don't have IGN's or GameSpot's editors breathing down my neck telling me what I can or can't say. I already know someone like me, who isn't even fully conservative or liberal myself, would either not get hired by any of these places or I would be fired for simply thinking differently than them. The point is that the reason why modern games journalism is largely dying is because they did it to themselves. They've alienated the people they should be catering to while also being too afraid to have any opinion of their own without approval from the hive mind that they all bow to. I mean, it's not even conspiracy theory-like to say that it's not just games journalism, but all media that just has a liberal bias. And look, I don't care who you voted for. On my channel, you can be liberal, conservative, a commie, or all of the above. As long as you vibe with the fact that I will always be cynical and have a no bullshit approach to everything in existence, then we're cool. If the gaming journalists of today aren't willing to speak out against their own peers without fear of being ostracized from the group, well, that's why people like me exist. Because I couldn't care less about having exclusive sneak peek coverage on whatever game is coming out. In a strange twist, it's the content creators of the modern era who act more like journalists than the actual people who went to school and got jobs at these godforsaken websites these days anyways. This cultural shift has been gaining momentum for years now, and when it comes to games coverage, why would I go to a major gaming website when I can go to YouTube and watch a channel who specializes in certain games or genres? Channels like Ziostorm, for example, cover everything from software related, and I know by watching his stuff it'll be news with no stupid bias. Or I guess I could go to Polygon and then get told that From Software is apparently sexist and doesn't know how to write women. I mean, we're seeing the consequences of these bad actors in real time, with entire networks like G4 going from a full-blown relaunch to closing down within a year. G4, like IGN and so on, was a place I used to watch religiously when I was a kid. I was a major fan of Attack of the Show and X-Play, and when it got announced it was returning, I was skeptical of them achieving anything remotely close to their former glory. And unfortunately, I was right. With newcomers like Frost, with her now infamous speech about sexism in gaming, spirit bombing the entire network's integrity and destroying any forward momentum G4 had in its revival. Then the network limped on, lost subscribers and investments until it was reported that G4 was going to be hit with massive layoffs. According to sources, people who worked at G4 came into the office to work and were completely oblivious to the reckoning coming their way, with employees being pulled one by one into HR and being told that they were being let go effective immediately. Eventually, after the initial layoffs, Frosk, who with her infamous sexism speech causing all of this, would also be let go. And even industry legends like Adam Sessler, who was brought back to host X-Play and more, decided to attack his already dwindling audience in unhinged tweets prior to G4's mass layoffs. Adam Sessler would send hateful tweets targeted at conservatives by saying things like Republicans are stupid, racist, and drink piss. He even said in 2021, until they clean their ranks, Republicans are a terrorist organization. And even further back in 2020, Sessler would go on to say, all the Republicans in my family can eat shit and die while I sip something bubbly. Remember when I said earlier that there's a hive mind over there in the game's journalism sphere? They all have the same talking points. They all hate the same people because it's politically correct for them to do so. This, my friends, is the absolute state of modern video game journalism today. It's full of bad actors who hate you even if you've done nothing wrong. And it sucks because I used to like Adam Sessler. I used to enjoy listening to him talk about video games and be passionate about them. I miss the days when your political stance or ideologies didn't completely define you as a person to those around you. In my experience, people are far more nuanced and not as rigid as these modern journals would want you to believe. I mean, you're allowed to disagree with me or with each other. It doesn't mean because we don't see eye to eye that we can't also respect each other as well. You can disagree or agree with anything you want. Life is not like World of Warcraft. You don't need to be in a binary choice like saying you're either the Alliance or the Horde. I can almost guarantee that many of you watching this right now are just like me. You're just tired of all of this. You're annoyed and over these people at varying levels of power telling you how to think or act. And I'm here to tell you that unlike IGN, GameSpot or G4 and so on, that there are places for you to just be yourself. Places like my channel or others where no comments are suppressed, your political ideology or whatever has no effect in how I will perceive you. Why these big entertainment websites can't understand this is beyond me. I mean, not only are these sites losing revenue at a breakneck pace, they're also running out of venture capital too. Places like BuzzFeed recently have laid off 12% of their workforce due to their awful, biased, brainless content. CNN laid off hundreds of employees as well, AMC cut its staff by 20%, and places like Disney are completely restructuring their businesses due to loss of revenue. And the thing all of these major companies, gaming websites, journalists, and more have in common is that they're all making content aimed at a modern audience that doesn't exist in the first place. They think by pushing ideologies that they deem politically correct while attacking their consumers that this will somehow work in their favor, and bring in imaginary ad revenue and subscriptions from modern consumers that they are so sure exist. But who out here actually likes being talked down to? Who honestly enjoys being attacked 24/7 and being told they're worthless unless they agree with everything they're told? Do you really want to live your life being told what to think or say by people who so clearly hate you for existing in the first place? The reality is thankfully much more bright for the consumers and fans at least. Because these attempted attacks at dividing people are starting to backfire on all these websites and the journalists who cling to them like flies on shit. People are waking up and taking their money elsewhere, with viewership at places like YouTube and Twitter are at an all-time high because no one trusts these major publications anymore. I did a whole video about the Callisto Protocol and the shady tactics of Metacritic, a site which can control its scores and influence what people buy with simple stupid numbers, yet it's also a disingenuous website at its core. Something like that Metacritic video that I made would never be produced at a gaming website these days. Because the reality is that a lot of these sites are in bed with one another in order to mutually benefit each other. And what sucks is that the people who are responsible for alienating the audience are almost never the first people to be let go. Just like how Frosk was kept on longer than many of her co-workers who actually edited, wrote scripts, and, played the actual games, she was kept longer than them anyway. And look at IGN, where the full extent of their layoffs are still unknown to the people working there. It's not really the people writing these garbage hit pieces that are being let go. but instead individuals who are deemed expendable and are clearly passionate about gaming that are getting let go instead. One ex-IGN employee affected by this layoff went on to say, and I quote, "I have no words, just a broken heart. After working so hard this past year, I've been terminated from IGN. I'm so crushed, I can't stop crying, I'm so confused. I moved to LA for this. I can't even say I'm looking for opportunities because I don't have it in me to want this anymore. I don't think I'll be able to bounce back. I think this is the end of my career in gaming. I'm sorry to all those that supported me." Another employee let go also had this to say, and I quote, "I worked for 7 years to get my job only to lose it to restructuring." And it gets even worse when you realize Ziff Davis's CEO was paid $16 million in compensation last year. But sorry, Ziff Davis just doesn't have the money to apparently keep these IGN employees on the payroll. Of course they can't. And again, all of this happening on the same day as the Game Awards. Big yikes. So while the industry elite came together to celebrate their achievements, drink champagne, and have the budget to invite people like Al Pacino to present awards, who by the way even said himself on stage that he doesn't even play video games, these same companies also couldn't care less about the people who actually work to keep their sites up and running. The video game industry is at its core becoming more rotten and exposed as the years go on. It's an industry full of the selected few feeding off the talents of faceless individuals crunching day in and out only to be thrown away in the shadows of celebration. The video game industry needs a course correction. It needs to stop attacking its audiences with stupid brain-dead articles and tone-deaf opinions. For an industry that apparently champions diversity and identity, it's a hypocritical behemoth that is more than okay with throwing away the very people they deem to care so much about as well. Look, this video's not meant to be a gotcha moment or anything towards anyone. I hate it when people get laid off. I hate it when people can't freely express themselves without being attacked. But the reality is that we're living in a time where corporations are willing to so easily say they care about their fans and workers, while also dropping and blacklisting them, all while the liquor flows and the cameras roll and the celebrities come to visit. Despite what I've said and shown in this video, the gaming industry is worth fighting for, and I will continue to do so because without independent voices, this kind of crap will just keep on happening. And when the day of reckoning comes, the people who will be shocked at what's happening and are looking for someone to blame will only have to look into the coldness of their own mirror. Thanks for watching, everyone. I know this video was way more cynical than usual, but when I saw the IGN layoffs happening and I saw all the glitz and glamour of the awards, I couldn't help but feel that rage in me just brewing ever hotter. We all deserve better. Anyway, if you like what you saw, consider subscribing or sharing the video, and remember to use my code HelloEndymion for up to 20 free meals with HelloFresh. Because you can't fight corporate evil on an empty stomach after all. Thanks to my patrons as always for fueling the madness, and I'm Endymion. I hope the people at IGN who were let go find help and hopefully they land on their feet. We all deserve better, and I'll see you in the next one.